this webinar series on Thursdays. Our first one was last month, and this is our second one. Talk a little bit about that in a second. Today's topic is going to be how to effectively communicate cyber risks to your organization. I'll be chiming in and throwing in some examples of what we've done here at Champion, and as well as what we've done to assist our customers with some of the challenges that they face under the same topic. Had a little hitting two buttons there, sorry about that. So for those of you who haven't been on webinars previously that I've facilitated, just a little bit about myself. I've got over 25 years experience in technology industry, with 10 or more of that with security specifically. For the last 8 years I've been leading the Champion Solutions Group Professional Services organization, and I'm also Champion's Information Security and Privacy Officer as well. Most recently I was one of the few so far that have been able to obtain the Certified Chief Information Security Officer certification, and with my breadth and knowledge and background here with security and technology, I also do consulting when requested for our customers and clients. A couple reminders before we get started. If you have any questions during this webinar, please type them into the question box and we will attempt to address them throughout the presentation as time allows. There will be time at the end to answer questions. If we do run out of time, we will follow up via email and answer everyone's questions. To get started, I'm going to share real quickly a little bit about Champion Solutions Group. For those of you that have not heard of Champion Solutions Group, we've been in business for over 35 years, and our mission is to deliver solutions and services that increase productivity, reduce costs, and mitigate risk. We have one loyalty, and that loyalty is to our customers. We pride ourselves on our vendor-agnostic approach, where we sell so many different solutions and vendors that we focus on finding the best solution for your requirements. We don't just present the flavor of the month or whatever is being spiffed at that moment in time. We really want to understand your environment and really become an extension of your team. We're really looking for a partnership, not a transactional relationship. And we don't want to be considered just another IT vendor in the hallway. We really strive to be your partner in the boardroom. So on the screen you'll see the 5 focus practice areas of Champion. I'm not going to, of course, read all of them. If you are interested in learning more about those areas, feel free to visit our website at championsg.com for additional information. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is the second in our Cyber Threat Defense Thursdays webinar series. Last month we focused on new school security awareness training in partnership with our partner KnowBe4. For those of you who were not able to attend, please feel free to, at your own leisure, and go out and watch the webinar on demand at the location on this screen. And in case I forget to say this at the end, because I did last time, all of the slides, everyone that's registered and attended will receive a copy of the slides, as well as a link to watch this webinar on demand as well. So with the first webinar being focused on new school security awareness, while I was contemplating the content for today's webinar and looking through how I wanted to structure it, it was just another reminder of just how many areas can be applicable to cybersecurity, communicating cyber risks, that I decided to prioritize and narrow down the focus of this webinar based on what I originally was going to do. The end result, which I hope you'll find useful, is that we'll continue to demonstrate the importance of creating a culture of cyber awareness within your organization. but we'll also highlight some do's and don'ts for communicating cyber risk from the boardroom to the break room, and specifically risk regarding your organization's crown jewels. And we'll get to more about that in a second. So to start, I want to put up a couple poll questions. We'll only have 2 throughout the entire session. We're going to do them right here in the front. My first question, you should see it up there on the screen. I want to know how in your company you guys, what you call them, how you refer to them as far as your critical assets. For those of you that are typing other, can you do me a favor and type it into the question? Just type in what you call those into the question area so we can take a look at those. While we're looking at what's being typed in, someone has said, will the slides be available? Yes, they will. We'll send you a link after the webinar. We've got major assets that was entered. That's the only one I think that came in. Okay, can we go back to the summary? So 45% of everyone that's participated in the poll said they call 48% refer to them as critical assets, 19% as knowledge assets, 18% as crown jewels, and 14% other. Thank you for your participation. Second question. Has your organization formally identified and documented its critical assets with the highest value to your business? And those assets considerations, people, processes, data, intellectual capital, when you're answering the question. That's what I'm looking to see. Yeah. Okay, looks like we're wrapping down and evening out here. So 52% of you have said yes that you have. For those that have, if you have any input or suggestions, anything you want, maybe you think would be a good point to bring up for others that would be useful, please feel free to type it in to the question box and we'll try to reference it further on in the presentation. So that's it for the polls for the webinar. Appreciate everyone's participation. Let's get going on what you're all here for. So, cybersecurity risk. I was looking for a way to identify a definition to kind of break down all the definitions that were out there. And what I came up with is, in my opinion, it's defined as the possibility of a potential loss due to a technology event of unauthorized access or attack, which could result in the compromise of your organizational assets, whether that be unauthorized use, loss, damage, disclosure, or even changes to them. That's done for profit, personal interests, competitive interests, political interests, or groups or other entities. As we all know, the compromise of those organizational assets may adversely affect the enterprise and its business units and employees. So for those on the phone that have been in security or have been involved in risk management overall, risk management's really the cornerstone of any strategy, but it's specifically extremely important for cyber strategies. And one thing that I've seen is that risk and threat are used synonymously. I've even done it in this presentation just based on some of the collateral that I've been collecting. You'll see that throughout. So when I was thinking about how we're going to describe this, I thought I'm going to just go out and look up the definition of risk. And basically risk is used when there's a sense of a chance that something's going to happen, whereas threat is used when there's a warning that something might happen. Not much difference between the two words, and really the outcome and the reality of both is that there's something negative that's going to occur as a result of either one. On the next slide, when I flip to it, I think I'll go there now, you'll see some feedback based on the Ponemon Institute research study that was conducted in July of 2016, where over 600 individuals throughout the U.S. that are involved in their company's approach to managing their knowledge assets were surveyed. And their feedback was pretty interesting. Their research addressed the following topics: understanding the risk to knowledge assets, data breaches involving knowledge assets, and how to protect knowledge assets. 74% of the respondents felt that their company failed to detect a breach involving their assets. 74%. That's scary. Especially, in my role being in charge of information security and privacy here at Champion, thinking that if I'm walking around saying, I believe that 74% of the time we're getting, something's happening and I don't know about it. 31% of the respondents felt like senior management only 31% felt that senior management makes protection of knowledge assets a priority. 60% believe their company's assets are in the hand of a competitor. 67% believe that third-party access to their knowledge assets poses a serious risk. And we're going to talk about third-party access as part of this presentation today. 50% felt that both privileged and ordinary, and no negative connotation with ordinary, but normal level of user access had access to the company's critical assets. And then 53% felt that senior management is more concerned about a breach involving a credit card or social security numbers or anything that they're going to have to formally report versus worried about their leakage of their knowledge assets. I thought it was very interesting, the feedback, and I read the whole report and just pulled out different pieces for this presentation but further on in the presentation towards the end is some reference material. You'll see the link to go access it yourself if you're interested. To me, it's very alarming, and I think we all know it's alarming because we all hear about it. So as I'm going through today, you're going to see me use crown jewels or knowledge assets. I historically have called what are our corporate or organization critical assets. That's been my verbiage for years. On a couple slides, maybe the next slide, a couple slides down, I was at a conference in November, and there was a presentation and it was being described as crown jewels, and I liked the connotation of that. And when I came back from that webinar, I basically asked our executive C-level team one question. What do you feel are Champion's crown jewels? In quotes, what would someone want to steal and why? Over the years, I've heard different executives in the companies that I've worked for really being unable to clearly define, not really understanding all of the different aspects of their data or their applications, being able to clearly define what their true assets are, including people, who are their critical people. So when I asked that question, I was pleasantly surprised that each of the C-level executives responded with the same identical response in the areas. Everything synced up, and I was shocked. When I went into a meeting with them after, I'm like, wow, that one question, I was able to get a concise, consolidated answer right away. So it was at that point that I started referring to stuff as crown jewels. All of the other verbiage ways that it's referred to, no different, but here at Champion, that's what we refer it to. It basically is anything critical to the business and core business operations that, if compromised or stolen, could severely damage a company's reputation, cause a reduction in revenue, or even leaving the company no option but to go out of business. Whether they're defined or not, and I believe it was 50-50 out there for the 50% of you that haven't defined your crown jewels, you have crown jewels. And it's going to be anything that's going to drive cash flows, give you a competitive advantage and shareholder value. And those crown jewels include your human assets as well. Everyone needs to take a step back and look and understand that the protection of an organization's crown jewels should be considered a major strategic business initiative with high-level priority. And it's not just a technology responsibility or a technology challenge. Just how there's emphasis on disaster recovery and business continuation, there has to be the same emphasis on what our crown jewels are within the company. So for today, as I said at the beginning of this webinar, I'm going to focus on the communication of risk for the crown jewels in a couple areas where we're most likely to see a threat or a risk, or both, from damaging or accessing those crown jewels. Real quickly, before we move on, Portunity has recently released their 2017 Security and Privacy Survey. And everyone knows your cooperation and the importance of anything that you're working on comes from the top down. So it's extremely important that your board of directors and or executive management, for those companies that may be private and not have board of directors, are engaged in understanding the risks associated to your business about your critical crown jewels. So Portunity asked the respondents, and it was made up of about 700 CIOs, CISOs, CTOs, high-level technology directors. How engaged do you feel your board of directors is with your information security risks relating to your business? Only 33% felt that they were highly engaged and had understanding. Medium engaged, which I was pleasantly surprised, it hasn't gone up a lot from 2015, but there's been some growth. Understanding, and there's still a 30% that either have a low level or don't understand or participate in it. And then another follow-up question was, do you feel your management or board of directors understands what your crown jewels are made up of? And if those companies had the high engagement, which was the 33%, 49% of them felt that they did have an understanding, whereas those that did not have high board engagement felt only 18%. So 18% of these 67% of the companies don't feel that the board or executive leadership has any idea what their crown jewels are made up of. They also asked, do your organizations have as a priority a clear data classification policy, being able to distinguish and put in access levels and confidentiality of different types of data? Those that had high board engagement, 85%. Companies without high board engagement, 66%. And then as far as management does an excellent job of communicating employees that need to differentiate between public and sensitive data and how each is treated, only 48% felt that they were educated enough or that it was high enough priority that they were able to distinguish the difference So basically, what of those crown jewels should be kept in-house and not left out for public disclosure or public availability? And it's extremely low, as you'll see in the bottom corner there, for companies that do not have high executive leadership and board engagement. Again, some alarming statistics that will have no other option but to change, or we're going to see a lot of other companies going out of business due to data breaches and other compromising issues with their critical assets. So the 4 key findings from the Portunity study was having an engaged board and an engaged executive leadership team with documented policies is a huge difference. That's kind of a given without even having to go through, at least from my perspective being in the industry for so long. Most organizations need to enhance their data classification and management. We saw it with the quick poll we did, 50-50 of what we're at. The security effectiveness hinges on policies as well as people. We focused on the people component during the last webinar. And then the 4th one, which we're starting to see more and more of a champion as being a preferred partner for a lot of our clients, is the vendor risk management portion must mature. We're getting more and more from our customers having to demonstrate that we have an enterprise-wide cybersecurity policies, procedures in place that we monitor, we perform, we audit against, questionnaires that we need to fill out, and maybe you're even doing that for those that are attending now, doing that as well. That's going to continue to grow as things continue to change. It's just the nature of where we live and how we live nowadays from a business perspective. So based on those results, some considerations of how to the management of your crown jewels, and some things to consider. Have your crown jewels been formally identified, classified, documented, and have the executives concurred with the work that's been done? Have data leakage prevention mechanisms been verified, and are they in place, and have they been tested as recoverable? Has the complete data lifecycle been documented and verified by the asset crown jewel owners that have been assigned? And have policies and procedures been developed regarding those that have access or privileged access in those cases where necessary, data retention and destruction? So we, here at Champion, we've gone through the whole crown jewel risk assessment, and going through and following the NIST framework is what we use here. And I'm not going to get into frameworks in this discussion in this webinar, but as I spoke up in the beginning, when I was at the ISSA International Conference in November of 2016 in Dallas, Doug Landau, who's the CEO of Lantego, did a presentation on how we need to really perform risk assessments on crown jewels. So some of the stuff I like the way, the reason I put this in here is I like the way that it's presented, easy to flow, easy to follow. I think it's clear and concise. And it kind of wraps up all of the other areas that we've talked about up to this point. So basically, what are the crown jewels? How are they classified? What risk level do we feel they are? How well are they protected? And what controls do we need to be sure are implemented for each? So easy to define, baseline, analyze, access, and report. And I thought it was very clear and concise, and in one sheet I could give to my executive team stating, here's the importance and why there's so much focus on locking down and securing and removing access from those users that don't need it for those crown jewel areas. So if you're interested in seeing more of that presentation, let me know and I can share it with you. And I'm giving Doug credit for it. I think it's a very concise one-page view of how to focus and get your crown jewels secured. So with that, I'm going to jump real quickly to two areas that are common risk focus areas for your crown jewels. Those of you that were on the January webinar, we focused on security awareness training, making sure the end users understand the implications of the actions that they take. The one thing that we stress here at Champion is that any one of us here, it only takes one unintentional click to possibly take our business down. We can have all of the security in place, do everything right. One mistake, there's always that one chance that could take things down. So some of the basic things that we see from our customers, things that have come up during discussions and consulting engagements, is the corporate headquarters inside the network, they do everything that they can from a security perspective, whether it's endpoint management, making sure the firewalls are in place, doing vulnerability and penetration testing, running security information event management logs, reviewing those logs. But someone accessing a company network from their home computer, which they do no antivirus, they do none of that, and come into our network is a potential take it down. This has happened, the second bullet on that list has happened here. Employees have had their laptops stolen or lost. And without having the remote wipe capabilities, if there were sensitive data, there's a big hole there. Using unsecured cloud-based services such as Dropbox, a big one here, a big culture change, and as I said at the beginning, the culture of security was having weak passwords. The same things that I'm talking about here, Champion Solutions Group has gone through internally as far as the things that we've implemented, the things that we're doing to make sure we're the most secure as we can possibly be. One of the large things was enforcing new password standards and the 90-day password changes. Something kind of basic that you assume that all companies are doing. They're still not. I was just at a customer site a couple weeks ago where the person hasn't had to change their password in 12 years. And at that point I also asked them, so do you only use that password for your work, or do you use it for other things? Oh yeah, I use the same password for everything I do, my banking, my work, everything. Huge risk area. So these bullet points are just some things for you guys to think about as we're going through. We talked a lot about on the last webinar about the phishing scams and the social engineering techniques of things that people do. And then the other one, which was part of the webinar last time as well, but someone just picks up a USB device, flash drive, they see it, they pick it up, they use it. You put it on the computer and it's got malware on it, malware or ransomware, and there you go. So with that, I see a question's coming here. Let's take a break here real quick. Kevin.
Sure. Judy asked, I have implemented an endpoint management and security information event manager. Do I really need to worry about my crown jewels if I already have this?
Great question. I think that's a misconception on a lot of different companies, that they have different layers of security and they don't need to worry about anything else, and that's really a misunderstood representation. Even if you have those items installed, you still need to be making sure that you're assessing and securing and monitoring and logging everything. Your access, your applications, your network, your databases, your email, your storage. Just because you have those things installed and implemented doesn't mean you're completely protected or free from anything being compromised. And then on top of that, you may have that as well, but it's not only just the software. You've got to have the policies and processes and procedures and the auditing of those in place to make sure that that you're doing that.
All right, well, we got another one from Cody here. He says, first question, critical infrastructure or critical assets?
If I would consider them both critical if they're detrimental to your business. Infrastructure can be a critical asset. Infrastructure can be a crown jewel, depending on how it's being utilized.
Okay, and then one last one here from Jamie. We are struggling to effectively communicate to our leadership team the importance of classified or critical assets. Who can I reach out to for consulting assistance?
Jamie, at the end of this presentation, my contact information is out there, so just feel free to send me an email, give me a call, and we can talk about it further and go into it a little more in depth about what we can do here at Champion and I can do to help you out with that.
All right, well, that's all the questions we have for right now. If you want to ask more questions, just type them in the question box, and we'll try to get to them as they appear.
Perfect. Second component, I think we just, let's see, did it go? There we go. Which was a 67% on that first slide I showed there. 67% feel that there's risk from risk and threats from third-party partners and vendors. So here there's just some things that I put down, things that you can do and consider when you're working with those third parties. Simple questions you can ask, and I'm going to step back before I go through these. I will tell you what we're getting here at Champion are multi-page, sometimes 10 pages worth of questions in detail, wanting to know answers to things that a lot of times aren't relevant to what we're doing at that account. So the one thing I want to caution everyone on the phone as you start getting more into working on your vendor risk management is make sure whatever you're creating is relevant. Don't just take something that you found on the internet that's being used by someone else and send it out so that you can check the box for your auditors that you're doing it. I had one a couple weeks ago that I think I answered one question out of 50 because the rest of them were not applicable to Champion or to the project that we were working on. So just a tip from me being on the vendor partner end of what I'm seeing, and then how I'm utilizing that as well as to what we're doing for our vendors and partners here at Champion to ensure that, you know, our next level is following and adhering to some standards and some cybersecurity policies and procedures. So some questions or points of thought to consider. Does your third-party vendor follow any industry standards that include cybersecurity practices? There's a bunch of different standards out there. Different industries have different standards. You'll hear ISO, you'll hear ISSA, you'll hear different ones in communication and healthcare, in supply chain. You'll hear different ones. They all have the same similar components that are kind of tweaked for their specific reference of industry. But if they are following a standard, which is a known standard, not a I developed this standard, a recognized standard is the best way to say it, then they're doing the things that need to be done. They've taken the initiative. They understand the importance. Even more than that is, have they had an independent audit or been certified against these standards? You can feel even more comfortable and secure that you can have confidence that they're working towards being able to mitigate and eliminate and prevent as much cyber risk as possible. And then, as I mentioned earlier, do they have their own vendor qualification program? Do they ask their vendors the same questions that they're being asked? Do they have a vendor or a vulnerability management program? Have they had a vulnerability and penetration assessment test? If so, they should be able to provide you a summary result of that test from the third party that performed it, stating, that they're in compliance and there's no high level risk to be concerned. And another big piece is, have the third party vendors documented escalation and the communication process and programs that, if for some reason something were to happen that could potentially affect you, that you're ensured that the notification will flow immediately to you so that you're aware and can take the appropriate precautions as necessary. Another big thing is, does the third-party vendor participate in the development or the evolving of any cybersecurity standards? If you have a vendor that does this, and by the way, I haven't found a vendor yet that I work with here at Champion that does, but if they do, they're really at the forefront of security and they're leading the way, and you can learn a lot from them. The basic question of, do you have an enterprise security policy procedures? Typically, they may not share the full breadth of the document with you. At Champion, we do not share the full document because you're giving away some information that you shouldn't. But we will share a table of contents showing that we have it. And if there's something specific that needs to do, we'll take care of that. And then, most important, even if they have all of the things I've mentioned above, let's say that you have something that you need to be sure is covered that's not. Will they work with you to better understand what you need and what cyber risks are important to you? That's a key question, because if they're not willing to evolve and enhance their program, that's something for you to consider and weigh as far as continuing to work with them going forward. So far, I have not found any vendor that we've worked with that's not willing to work with us on things we need. But just some kind of key takeaways for everyone on things that I've seen and been involved in and what I'm seeing here at Champion, both from, I guess my perspective is a little unique. When I was a CIO, what I had to do as a CIO, now I'm here consulting and working with customers, as well as making sure Champion is staying up to par with what needs to be done. So a pretty unique view of how to do that. So a couple of quotes when I was going through stuff that kind of popped up when I was doing some research, and it goes back to understanding what your crown jewels are. You can't protect what you don't know about. That is so true. 50% of you don't classify your crown jewels. How are you going to protect it if you don't know what they are? And if you don't know what they are or where you're going or what you're trying to do, as Henry Kissinger said, every road will get you to nowhere. So you'll be spinning and not making any progress. And then another point, which I'll hit a little farther in, tying to metrics. You can't manage what you don't measure, by William Deming. If you've got to have some way to be able to share the good and the bad from a metrics. You know, everybody wants to have great metrics. Sometimes it's good not to meet a metric because it's room for improvement and gives you opportunity to show what you can do. But metrics that you can share that are relevant across all areas of the organization. I think a question just popped in here. Let me check real quick. Nope. Cool. My screen flashed. I thought someone was there. Getting lonely. Nobody's sending questions. Start sending questions. So some suggestions for cyber risk communication do's and don'ts. And I started with, I guess, don'ts and do's. Don't think that cybersecurity is just the problem of the technical team and they're the ones that only have to focus on it. It's not. And don't communicate that cybersecurity is just, it's its own project and it only affects what they're working on. It needs to be communicated and demonstrated is that it's an ongoing, it's not a project, it's an ongoing, continuous corporate initiative that must be integrated with business priorities. Don't misrepresent that everything being done will ensure that the organization is 100% cyber risk-free. All of us out there know, with the way things change by day, that this is neither feasible or achievable. All you can do is put everything in place and do your best to ensure and mitigate the risk as much as possible. As far as communication, and sometimes I have to watch this, I love cybersecurity, and this is a little personal for me. I love cybersecurity. I love everything about security. But I can see people's eyes glaze over sometimes when I start to talk to them about it because they don't really care. They don't want to know the detail. They just want to know sometimes why they're doing it. So just don't attempt to explain cyber risk or cybersecurity to everyone in detail that you meet. As I can say, they're just going to hear blah, 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 blah at a certain point and not be paying attention. And one big thing, as you're going through the process and making sure that you're training your users, you're educating your users, it needs to be a cooperative, open environment. Don't embarrass anyone or single anyone out to a big group of people like at a company meeting. If they've been one that maybe has made a mistake, maybe they clicked on a phishing link, maybe they caused an issue, just address them, address any potential issues one-on-one. You don't want people to feel attacked. You don't want people to feel afraid to come and talk to you because they're going to be singled out or made fun of. So some cyber risk communication do's. It's very important that you determine what needs to be communicated, who it needs to be communicated to, how they will be impacted, and what the best method of communication will be to allow it to be tailored and relevant and effective for each different audience that it may be relevant for. And then how are you going to prioritize those communications and how often are you going to do them? If you're sending a security awareness email every day, I can tell you it's going to get put in a rule that people put in a delete folder. So you just have to be targeted and think about that. You really want to provide a consistent message to all employees that it's everyone's responsibility to be cyber aware. When we were going through and making some changes here at Champion, and starting to lock down access on some of the systems, because we were always a pretty open environment, the way the company's been. And one of the, you're doing change, and even people that may not affect, it's change, why are you changing, don't you trust me? I kind of presented it as this, I made it personal. What if your entire family, brothers, sisters, parents, you found out they had access to your bank account, and they had access to your bank account for a while, you never thought anything of it, you're an open family, you share. Would you want your entire family having access to your bank account? Being able to, your bank account or credit card, being able to charge whatever they wanted, take money out whenever they wanted, clear your account out whenever they wanted. Not that it would ever happen, you would hope your family would never do that, but it could happen. So try to explain risk and why things are being done in terms that aren't threatening or don't make the users feel that they're being punished for something or they're not being trusted. Make sure everyone feels included. Encourage everyone to stay alert, speak up. I can't tell you, when I ran we first started the security awareness training here, and how many once people realized we were doing it, because we didn't announce it initially at first because we wanted a baseline to see what was going on, how many people were emailing myself, our CTO, our network architect, with every email, is this spam? Is this a phishing alert? Should we be doing that? You want them to feel comfortable and feel free to be able to speak up and say something. So promote that and welcome that. Provide regular security awareness training, whether it's the computer-based training that we have here, but also include contests, newsletters, posters, lunch and learns, podcasts, tips and tricks, anything that may be relevant, and keep that forefront of mind for your organization. We've talked about this previously. Make sure you have a documented enterprise security policy and procedures that are accessible, that the employees have read them, they've acknowledged them, they understand they're going to be enforced, and they adhere to them. Here at Champion, we've gone through a whole, getting ready to roll out, we've gone through a whole revamp of job descriptions. And within everyone's job description, because it wasn't there previously, there's now this cybersecurity component to everyone's job description. So just things like that to help enforce it. And then we talked a little bit about developing cybersecurity related metrics that will demonstrate the overall impact on the initiatives and the progress that you're having throughout the organization. So some metrics that I've included, just real high level, real quick. We did our initial baseline phishing test. Communicated to, what percentage of the organization clicked on I don't even remember which one I used at the time, clicked on the link for their free $49.31 Amazon credit in their account that was sent to their work email when they shouldn't have been using Amazon for their work, using their work email for Amazon anyway, but what percentage of people clicked on it. And then demonstrating that was before they had their formal training, and then demonstrating after their formal training how they were more aware of what to look for in the headers, what they were looking for in the emails, what to be considering when they're getting those emails that they're not sure if they're true or not. And I know I mentioned just on the last webinar, so I apologize for those that have been on both, but I would say that for the initial hesitation of the company of going through, Champion specifically going through security awareness training, and it's just another thing they have to do on top of all their other daily tasks, that I had people coming up to me, many people that I lost count, wanting to know how they could get access to that training for their teenagers, their kids, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, because they felt it was so valuable. And that's what you want to, that's how you want them to feel, that what the information you're providing them is valuable to them, not only professionally, but personally. So with that, some things to wrap up here to help all of you all better prepare for potential security threats, be able to help you communicate potential security risks if you need to get funding. Some additional things that I'm going to wrap up with is we still offer, Champion still offers a free phishing security test through our partner KnowBe4, where we will do a phishing test on your up to 100 users. Just like I mentioned in the email earlier, we set your users up. Your users are set up in the system. There's some setup on your end that you need to do, but that data, that result of that phishing test will give you data, actual user data, that you can then use to communicate potential risks to your crown jewels, both to your boardroom and executive leadership as well as to your break room, and hopefully for those that may have trouble getting funding for cybersecurity awareness training, help with that. The other thing Champion offers is a security risk survey. This survey allows, is about 15 to 20 minutes of your time, so it is a little more in-depth than just answering the questionnaire. But at the end of the completion of that survey, you will get an executive level report with scores on areas where you're doing very well, or where you could be doing lacking and could be doing better. It's a pretty comprehensive report. I think it's probably, I don't even know, maybe 6 to 12 pages, trying to think going back. Just so you know, I took it here at Champion when we were testing it, and I used Champion as one of the test cases when I took it. So, and then that kind of helps devise, you know, your prioritizing, and has tips on the areas where you're at risk if you don't do these things, etc. So that's available on the website there. Another new excuse me, thing that you're going to be hearing more about is the large effort for companies, and maybe even in your company, those that are attending, to migrate to Windows 10 or upgrade to Windows 10. And on March 7th, we're going to be holding a webinar to share with you what Champion does to assist with that, the top reasons why companies are moving, and how we've developed a process that can help you seamlessly complete a hands-free migration with little effort. So if you're interested in attending that, anytime you want to attend one of Champion's events, it's always championsg.com/events. Also, for those attending, there'll be everybody will be entered in a raffle for an Xbox. If you're interested in learning more about Windows 10, or you're just now starting to kind of research, know what you want to do, Champion has a phenomenal website with all kinds of resources, and the link is also here in the presentation, and you will get that when it's sent to you. And then our next upcoming Cyber Threat Defense Thursday webinar, which I'm very excited about, by the way, will be March 23rd. And this webinar is going to be in a panel format, and I'm gonna be facilitating the discussion with a lawyer who's basically been listed as one of the top lawyers, best lawyers in America for information management law, and in 2016 was named as a National Law Journal's Cybersecurity 12 Raiser. And Twitter's also named him as the 82nd most influential person in the world in data security. So So currently, the law firm that he works for, he's co-leading the cybersecurity, privacy, and data governance practice and does a lot of speaking and events. That's one of the panelists, so I'm very excited about that. The second panelist will also be another law firm partner who chairs a privacy and data security practice, was in 2015 was named as a cybersecurity trailblazer by the National Law Journal, and also internally was a recipient of a Client Choice Award for his technology-based service, and that was based on clients nominating him for that, which is awesome. And then the third panelist will actually be a property and casualty insurance vice president, excuse me, who leads the technology and life services industry in his organization with 10 years of experience. His particular focus is on cyber privacy, liability, technology, and other complicated casualty risks. And he's got a very in-depth understanding of the fast-changing industry, regulatory, and operating exposure, and also speaks at many cybersecurity-related conferences and seminars. So because this next seminar is going to be a panel-driven seminar, if anyone has any specific issues, cybersecurity issues they're experiencing from a legal perspective or concerned about or want to better understand how to protect themselves, or just a question in general, please submit them to me. My contact information is right on the screen here and will be on the slide presentation. Please submit them to me so I can get them kind of up front and ahead of time and incorporate them with the panel prep so that we can try to address them during the panel session. There'll always be, when we do the panel sessions, there's always a lot of questions that come in and we can't get to all of them, so I'm trying to get as many as possible in advance to facilitate that discussion and try to keep it on track to address as many things as we can. So hopefully all of you will join that and spread the word to your counterparts and peers. It's going to be an awesome, event. And then some feedback based on the last webinar and a prior webinar that I've been involved in, as well as a couple of engagements where I spoke at, was, Debbie, can you share with me some of the resources that you use, or what are things that you're looking at, or what books are you reading now? So on the screen I've just put 3 books that are recent reviews, I guess, not being paid. They don't even, the people that I put these up here don't even know that they're here, so I don't want anybody to think I'm promoting getting any money on the side. It's more of what I do for my educational and growth and the things that I look at. So those are up there as well if anyone is interested. And then I also included the link to the Portunity, I don't know if I'm saying that right with my Midwest accent, but Institute research report that I think everyone should take a few minutes and go out and review. So with that said, I'm going to do one last look. If anyone has any questions, now is your last attempt to get them in here.
No, right now, no more questions.
Well, I would just take that and mean that I did.
Oh, there's one popped in right now.
Let's see.
Great overview, new technology presentation that I will contemplate. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. So I guess that means I explained everything and there's no questions, because I will say, based on the attendees, I think we only had a couple people go off. Most of you stayed on the whole time, which is kind of how we gauge how it's going. My contact information is available in the presentation if you have further questions or you want to reach out one-on-one. A couple other things. Be sure to follow, thank you for attending today, but be sure to follow Champion on all our social media. I've also, as well as Champion SG's Twitter account, I've also put my Twitter handle up there. And if anyone, I'll be putting stuff out there regarding with the hashtag CSG CyberAware. Anyone wants to add anything or follow it, or tag something, a thought, something they see, or include me on it, feel free to do that and I'll respond. And then once again, today's slides and the replay link for the webinar will be sent to everyone registered. So I think we are right at time. Give everybody back. Oh, we're at 3:01. Well, I started at 2:01, so exactly 1 hour.